Chapter 7. We ran. Our concrete escape tunnel led us several hundred feet and ended in a T intersection where older tunnels, brick and mortar, ran to the right and left. The screech of zombie wails echoed from behind us. Deciding at random, I turned left, and we sprinted 100 more steps. Several other tunnels led away, alternating to the right and to the left. We passed through basements, cellars, and into more tunnels. We turned at chance, and finally stopped when we could no longer hear the zombies echoing behind us. The tunnels ended in the basement of a building. I don't know which one. No zombies greeted us with claws and sharpened teeth. No zombie wails echoed from the tunnels behind us. The zombs disappeared as quickly as they had arrived. We climbed 2 flights of stairs to the lobby of an old grand office building. Wilcox planted claymores at the door to the stairs and at both ends of the lobby. We were safe for the moment, and I said to Wilcox, "Forget it. We won't be here long enough." He ignored me. Escobar stood guard, watching and listening, while Lopez fooled with his analyzer. Jill and I looked at Connor's leg. With a knife, I cut open his army fatigue pant leg. I retrieved a med kit from my backpack and cleaned the bullet holes which were slowly weeping blood. The shots went through, in and out, 2 bullets, 4 holes, no artery hits, no broken bones. "You're lucky," I said to him as I poured peroxide scrub on the wounds, wiped away the foaming blood, and poured zinc oxide powder into each hole. As our adrenaline levels fell, I could see pain rising in Connor's eyes. "Jill, get the morphine." She reached into her pack and retrieved an auto-injector. "The bleeding is stopping, for now. We have to get you to the hospital," I said to Connors as Jill used the injector, and I loosened the tourniquet. If I left the belt around his leg too long, he would lose circulation and his leg would have to be amputated. If I loosened it too much, he might bleed to death, but the bleeding subsided. "We have a mission," Connors protested, his eyes instantly glassing over and his face becoming placid as the morphine hit his system. "The mission is over. We have the frequency thing," Jill said. "It's not over," Lopez replied as he worked on the analyzer. "I've got a signal. We need to find the source. Can you drive?" he asked Connors. "We've got to get someplace safe so I can map the coordinates of this jammer." "The hospital is safe," Jill said in a strained voice. "And I need to check Escobar," I said. Someone asked why. "His shirt was torn. Got to make sure he didn't get scratched." The big man came over from the doorway to the basement and turned around. I pulled his shirt open where it had ripped and checked for scratches on his back with a flashlight. He was unmarked. I reported as much. "We gotta go," Lopez said. "Find a car. Just give me the keys. I can drive," Connors said to Lopez. I looked at Lopez and Connors and wondered if they had gone crazy. "We just doped him up. He's not driving." "Give me a minute. I'll be okay," Connors said. "Not all the cars have been siphoned," Lopez added. "This is a city full of cars. We can find at least one out there that works." "Do you think the Zombs will try another attack?" Jill asked Lopez. "Maybe." "That makes me feel better," she said with a sarcastic laugh that threatened to break into sobs. I secretly wished she'd toughen up, even as I realized that the stress was probably getting to all of us. "Get those claymores," I said to Wilcox. "How many do you have left?" "Last 3, boss lady," he smirked. After all we'd been through, he was still a jerk. I imagined the guy dropped M80s into toilets as a child and annoyed girls at every chance. I responded, "At least my mama didn't drop me off at school and then move without leaving a forwarding address." "Really? 'Cause that's what your mama told me in the shower this morning," Wilcox reported. The memory of my mother being killed made me hate Wilcox even more, but recalling that his family photo had been stolen, I held back my response. "That's enough," Lopez said as he looked at me. "We're moving out. Wilcox, get those claymores. Julie, shut up." "You like to give orders," I replied. "Only because you're so good at following them." He smiled. "Don't bet on it." We moved into the street. Which street we were on, I did not know. We were lost in the dark. The moon was the only landmark, and nearing its peak, it told me only which way was south. Escobar helping Connors walk, Wilcox taking up the rail with Jill, Lopez and I watching for Zombs. We moved from car to car, checking for keys in the ignitions. Jill found one in the middle of the street. When she turned the key, the solenoid clicked. "It has gasoline. It just won't start." "The solenoid or," Escobar said. "The battery is almost dead," Wilcox finished his thought. Lopez found another car and the engine turned over, but it wouldn't start. "No gas," he said as he looked at the gauge. "What if we put this battery into that car?" I asked. "Good idea. No time. No tools." We moved down the street. Zombs followed us. On rooftops and through windows and doorways I saw movement. They would appear and then disappear before I could shoot. From some hidden place, leaders were tracking us. They kept their zombie slaves just out of range. When one of us took aim, the zombs all moved out as if given a standing order. Move now, any direction. When out of our sight, they seemed to stop. Total silence filled the space between their shuffling feet and raspy wails. The night became like a choreographed dance. It was Thriller, sans the 80s clothing and bad makeup, but much deadlier. This was nothing like shooting fish in a barrel. Every time I got close enough to draw a bead on one, it would move from the window or down the alleyway. Sometimes Jill or one of the men fired. I thought it a waste of ammo, until Wilcox laughed out, "I got one." The shooting gallery was distracting us from finding a car, but still I wondered why the Zom didn't attack us with full force as they had in the tower. "Back to work," I hollered. "We need a car." Lopez tried a white pickup truck, a Ford. It had keys and started with a strain and a grudge. "Quarter tank of gasoline," he said with a whoop. Escobar and Connors had fallen back, slowed by the wounds in Connors' leg. "Help Connors," I said to Jill. She ran back down the street to cover the two men letting loose a blast that stopped a solitary Zom running toward them. I scanned right, left, and behind. Wilcox ran back to Connors, having passed him in the excitement. He threw his M4 over one shoulder and bent to lift Connors over his other shoulder. We all moved toward the pickup truck. The Zoms came at last. They seemed to have received a command to attack as if the leaders anticipated our escape. "Into the back," Lopez yelled to Wilcox. "No time." Wilcox dumped Connors over the tailgate and jumped in. Connors groaned at the impact, but we would be safely away in seconds. Jill jumped into the front with Lopez, while the rest of us piled into the bed of the truck. Lopez stepped on the gas and ran down a zombie blocking the road. It bounced off the hood with a crunch of bones. It struggled in the moonlight to try to get back up onto its broken legs. It was a woman, maybe someone's mother. Was. For the first time in my life, I felt no pity. As we drove away, I noticed something odd about the way she lay on the ground. She looked pregnant. We drove with the headlights off and our night vision goggles on. We couldn't go too fast because we had to negotiate cars abandoned in the streets and blockades built by scavengers. I didn't pay attention to the direction we traveled, instead keeping busy with watching the buildings, houses, alleyways, and side streets. Zombies emerged from the shadows to be left behind in the darkness. We must have traveled a couple miles, probably south, and we would have to find our way back to the hospital north and west of the city. We stopped once so that Connors could drive, freeing Lopez to help fight if needed. He was stable. The bleeding stopped. Everyone jumped out, ran or limped around the truck, and jumped back in. "This is like a Chinese fire drill," I said. Wilcox laughed, so I knew it wasn't funny. I guess it wasn't nice to say that about the Chinese. I wondered if China had the world's largest population of zombies. That was probably not nice either. Protesting Connor's driving was useless. He insisted he was okay, his eyes having cleared up and the pain returning, but tolerably. Still, I thought it stupid, for he could pass out at any moment, but Lopez overruled me, I think to spite me. Lopez sat in front with Jill in the middle. Wilcox, Escobar, and I rode in the back. I saw through the rear window that Jill held hands with Lopez. We made our way west on 21st Street toward I-244, according to the street signs that passed through our headlights. We stopped on the 23rd Street Bridge just beyond where 21st zigzags south and then west as it crosses over the Arkansas River. The middle of a bridge was as safe a place as we were going to find. No houses, no trees, no Zoms. I thought about our options. From the bridge we could return to Fort Tulsa and tend to Connor's leg and our own resupply, or we could find the jammer and knock it out. We had a decision to make, and we needed a chance to talk. Lopez got out of the truck and walked around to drop the tailgate. There he worked on the analyzer, getting it set up to capture the jamming signal. We all poured out of the truck, except Connors. She reached into a cargo pocket on her fatigue pants and took out 6 rounds of 20 gauge. "How many rounds are in the 32? I asked. "I haven't fired it yet." "Okay." To Lopez and Escobar I said, "I've got 8 shells for the shotgun and 10 rounds of 44. What do you have?" I have a bearing on the jammer. 59 degrees northwest, 301 degrees southwest. Lopez laughed as he held a big loop-shaped antenna up in the air and slowly rotated it. For your guns, I corrected my statement. One magazine. Wilcox stopped singing to answer. At least he was paying attention. Last mag, Escobar said. 2 mags and I'm out of grenades for the launcher, Connor said from the driver's seat. Lopez? I'm out, he answered. Look who's wasting ammo. I laughed. I still didn't like the guy. I just disliked him a little less than Wilcox. We need ammo. We're going back, I said. No, Lopez countermanded me. We get a second bearing first. We have enough firepower to do that. If we don't run into any zombies, Jill said with worry in her voice. Connors is bleeding. If we go back, we save his life. If we go on, he dies. Did anyone notice he's the one driving? We're only a couple miles from the hospital, I said. If we go on, we KO the jammer and reestablish radio comm with Tinker Air Force Base. Plus, we find out what happened to Grierson. And Jim, I thought, but instead said, we need ammo. We need to KO the radio jammer. We need to find Grierson. And we need a second bearing. Take one now, Jill suggested. Can't. I need it from someplace else, at least a mile or two away. The hospital roof, she offered as a suggestion. Lopez thought about it for a second and said, good as any place. We go back, resupply, and go back out. Mount up. Maybe we can get some gas for the truck, Connor said. Winters' ass is so tight you'd think he's keeping it stored up there. Wilcox crudely laughed as we all climbed back into the truck. Lopez took the wheel, telling Connors to slide over.